I've been at DataTorrent for about a year and a half now, and I thought it'd be good to reflect on what we've been doing over the last year and a half, tell you about what stuff we've been building, and after that, Nathan will take us forward with what's coming up in 2017 as well. We'll take questions at the end, but if you have a quick question, I can take it while the talk is going on as well. So over 2016 and early part of 2017, our focus was primarily on getting the releases out quickly, understanding what customers are really focusing on, and providing them those features as we move forward. We also focused a lot on simplicity for developers, providing the high-level APIs, providing simple APIs for customers to get into production quickly as well, and then finally helping them with staying in production once they've launched the product. So a lot of the things that Amol talked about in the keynote as well. In 2016, we had almost 4 or 5 minor releases of RTS, which is our real-time streaming platform, and several releases of Apache, Malhar, and Apex, which were driven by the community, but several releases through the year. And we follow the semantic versioning model, so we have a major, minor, and patch release every few months. So major releases are typically about 12 to 18 months out. They typically align with the Apache Apex releases and include new functionality that might break the backward compatibility in a major release. And then we have minor releases, which are every about 3 to 4 months or so. They include new functionality that helps customers try out new features, to test out new capabilities of the platform. And finally, patch releases as we go and find new issues in the production environment, and as customers talk about report any issues, we'll fix them in patch releases as well. So that's a quick overview of what we did in the last year. What I'm going to walk you through is some highlights of what our focus was over the last year. We've primarily focused on accelerating big data projects into production. So as customers were trying out our products, we wanted to make sure they have broad awareness of what the platform does. So we looked at different areas like integrating with other Apache projects like Apache NiFi and Ambari, which help customers to understand how the product fits into the overall ecosystem of big data projects. Once people are aware of the project, they want to understand what is the ease of use, how easy is it to use Apache Apex, what are the APIs that we provide, what is the documentation and examples that we provide. So we spend a lot of time on helping customers understand the ease of use of the platform. And once you have the ease of use, people also want to understand how capable is the platform, what are the different areas that you support, whether you support machine learning or SQL. You want to know and understand what are the future areas that we're investing in further as well. So that helps customers move from understanding the platform capabilities and then finally moving into production. And once you get into production, that's where customers really care about alerting, log management, troubleshooting, those kind of capabilities. So I thought it might be good to use this lens to help you understand what features we've been building in the last year or so. So the first one is in terms of awareness. As we talk to a lot of customers, we realized that there is a set of engineers who are more comfortable with user UI-based tools to develop big data applications. So one thing that we focused on was ingestion solution with DTassemble. This is basically a tool that we provided to allow users to build the big data applications through a drag and drop user interface. So in this case, you can see a palette of operators that are available here, which a customer can drag and drop onto the canvas, configure them in the attributes and properties at the bottom pane here, and then you can actually launch the application directly from our tool directly. So this was trying to help customers understand that we have a ready-to-use palette. And oftentimes, customers would start off with this, but they realize that they need a lot more power and will then move to the development environments that we offer for Apache with Eclipse and NetBeans, different developer toolkits that we have available. The other area that we really focused on is the benchmark and certification. So as customers start looking at the big data ecosystem, they're really attracted to the different operators that we have available. Like Kafka being a very popular one, people will look at our operator library with Apache Malhar, the Apex Malhar project, and they'll realize that we have a bunch of operators that are easy to use and they can get started much more quickly. So over the last 2-3 quarters, we've added support for Kafka 0.8, 0.9, and 0.10 is still in progress. We've added support for JMS, SQS. We've added new operators for processing the data in between as well. So we've been pretty active and added new operators through the year as well. Another aspect that we realized very quickly is customers want to be certain that these operators certified and tested with high load as well. So we created a framework called Operator Maturity Framework, which is described on the left hand of this slide. We basically go through the basic certification, advanced certification, and tool certification process to make sure these operators are available and easy to use for customers. So our basic certification will include concepts like fault tolerance, scalability, and making sure basic examples and documentation exists. As part of our advanced certification, our quality engineering teams will focus on load testing and benchmarking. And then finally, when we want to put them into some of the tools, like DT-assemble that I just showed, we'll make them available as a DT-assemble specification so you can drag and drop those operators in your applications as well. This also includes visualization of the data as well. So that's the overall flow we have for operator maturity. Going back to our screen for improving the ease of use, we also added support for higher level APIs that I want to talk about. So our first set of APIs for developing applications was very compositional in nature. Basically, a user would define the set of operators that you want to put together in your DAG, and you'll connect them through streams that are indicating where data flows from one operator to the other. But so as we looked at our competition, as we looked at what's available in the market and what customers are looking for, they wanted the application specification to be much simpler as well. So we introduced the concept of a higher level API that's more intended to quickly come to development of your big data applications. We've introduced new concepts like event time windowing and session window support in the APIs as well, concepts like watermarks and lateness. And all of these will be covered in detail in other talks as well, so I'll just mention them here. And then now we are finally working on a Python binding for these APIs as well. So if you want to design your application in Python instead of Java, you'll have that option available as well. In the big data streaming application ecosystem, there's another project called Apache Beam, which allows users to specify the overall API design for streaming applications. Our high-level API actually follows a lot of the patterns and paradigms set in Apache Beam, but we also integrate with Apache Beam as a runner in that project. So Apache Beam basically provides a high-level API, and you can pick a different runner, whether it's Spark or Apex or Flink. You can give different runners at that time. But given the operability of Apex, we think Apex would be the best choice for Apache Beam projects as well. So moving on to the platform capabilities, in the last year, we've also added some more areas like machine learning and SQL. So our first foray was with running machine learning algorithms. So if you see, there's another project in the Apache open source ecosystem called Apache Samoa, which provides the ability to run streaming machine learning algorithms. This is still an incubating project. It's still developing, but the idea is to provide a bunch of different algorithms that can be run in a streaming way rather than in a batch-oriented way. And Samoa provides a way to plug in your own engine into their ecosystem as well. And what we did was essentially provided a way to integrate Apex as a runner or as an engine for running big data machine learning algorithms. So that allows customers to really quickly run the machine learning algorithms with a truly tested engine like Apache Apex. Another area that we invested on in the last year is bringing SQL to Apex. So we realized a lot of the customers who are using Apache Apex may or may not be Java developers. So we introduced the concept of SQL as a way to define your DAG, which is the directed acyclic graph of your application as well. And the way we did this was by integrating with Apache Calcite. This is another project that allows you to plug in your own engine for execution. So they have a whole stack, like a database stack with a JDBC client, JDBC server, validation, parsing, and optimizations. And the runtime engine can be any other engine under the covers as well. So by integrating with SQL, you get much more flexibility in defining your applications. Okay. And then finally, on the troubleshooting side and making the product side of RTS much more stronger, we introduced new capabilities for alerting and notification. So as your application is running, you can actually configure rules for alerting alerting your ops team about any situations where you want is out of ordinary, for instance. And these are based on simple rules that you're defining in JavaScript. You'll define it in our configuration under system alerts, and you can provide the rules for each of these applications in a system alerts management tool here as well. We've also focused on helping developers understand the critical path of their applications. For instance, if you have a very complex application, it might be hard to find out which path of your DAG is the most time intensive. So in this case, with all the monitoring metrics that we collect at the application level, we are able to identify where the bottlenecks in your application are. These are all these tools that are really helpful in taking your application to actually make it operational, because you don't have to do debugging after you've already launched. So these are really helpful tools. Another tool that we've added actually recently is for troubleshooting for garbage collection. Think of a distributed application like Apex. It's running with multiple containers, multiple JVMs across your Hadoop cluster. How do you find out where the bottlenecks might be because of garbage collection? So some of the tools that are coming in our 3.8 release will help you understand what are the containers which are experiencing high garbage collection and causing latency issues in your application as well. So this helps again going into production, because you can manage your application much more easily through the tools that DataTorrent offers. Okay. And finally, in 2017, we are planning to have another set of releases for our RTS platform. I haven't called out the Apache Malhar and core releases right now, because that's driven by the Apex community. But on the RTS side, we'll have another release of our 3.8 release in about 2 weeks or so. And a lot of the solutions and application templates that we keep developing, those are released monthly as and when they are ready. And to take you forward, Nathan is going to talk about what's coming up in 2017 as well. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Pritesh. And good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining the conference today. So I want to talk a little bit about what we're thinking about in the future for Apache Apex as well as DataTorrent RTS. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go fairly quickly, but we'll take a little bit of questions and answers at the end, and you can grab me afterwards. So, really some of the fundamental questions when I think about the future of streaming analytics, streaming applications, DataTorrent and Apache Apex, it really comes down to, who do we serve? How do we drive Apex adoption? How do we help, our customers, our partners on the journey, and how do we address complexity? So I'll kind of walk you through some of that thinking as motivation to where we're going in the future with Apex and with DataTorrent. So thinking about who we serve, really what I like to ask is, who do we serve and what are they really trying to accomplish? with big data streaming analytics. And it really comes down to, we're changing the whole model. I mean, you heard about it from Eric this morning as we evolve big data processing. We're changing the whole model away from where you extract and transform data, land it somewhere, and then produce insight from that at a later time. We're really moving towards a world where you can produce insight and take action in real time. And that's that piece in the middle. It's really the streaming competitive advantage. That's what customers are looking for over and over when we talk to customers about their use cases. That's what they're trying to accomplish. And looking back, as Pritesh sort of reviewed where we've been over the last year, but looking back even longer over sort of the history of big data, I think a lot of where we've been focused has been on those folks in the middle in trying to address their use cases and solve a technology problem. But as we've evolved, as streaming analytics have taken off, we're starting to expand our lens a little bit and focus on the business owner on the left and focus a little bit more on the ecosystem that's starting to form around Apache Apex. So there's a few things we look at in the future that we need to do in DataTorrent RTS. So first of all, I think we need to focus on the right developer. I think in the early days of any technology development, things are complex and they're difficult. And so quite often you're focused on trying to deliver some new technology, some new application of technology that's never been done before. And so oftentimes that means you have architects involved and so forth. It really requires people with a lot of experience and brain power in order to bring these things to light. I think as Apex is maturing, as we're starting to see adoption, as streaming analytics is becoming a bigger and bigger thing, we need to unlock what's possible with streaming analytics for a much broader set of engineers. And so that means focusing on that guy in the middle. Now, Amol put up a picture this morning in the keynote sessions of an iPhone. Maybe eventually streaming analytics will get there. That's the vision on the left of eventually getting to the point where you can deliver big data insight as easily as you can deliver an iPhone. But what we're saying is we need to start progressing towards that vision and focusing on a larger set of engineering talent at our customers who want to take advantage of what's possible but need our help. I think another theme for us in the coming year, it comes down to reducing complexity. Now, the Apex community has already done a tremendous thing, which is to introduce the directed acyclic graph, to introduce an abstraction that hides complexity, makes life easier on the developer. Indeed, creating Yarn in Hadoop was really all about creating an abstraction that allowed for faster innovation. But one of the big themes that came out of the Strata conference a few weeks ago, and is in general producing a lot of discussion in the big data ecosystem right now, is Hadoop, is big data too hard for larger enterprises to really adopt and get use out of? And there's a whole variety of reasons. Complexity is one of them, lack of operability, and so forth. But where we look at the future is we have to continue to focus on reducing that complexity, hiding that complexity. And some of the examples you've heard already, certainly the fundamental abstraction of Apex, but then on top of that, things like the operator library that gives customers the ability to create pipelines quickly out of known, tested functionality. But we continue to move up the stack. Beyond operators, I think if any of you have known or looked at DataTorrent recently, now we're beginning to focus on delivering application templates, which is a way to deliver an abstraction, or rather a template, a pattern that covers 80% of what you might do in a processing pipeline in the first place. So all of these things are a steady march towards reducing complexity so that a much bigger ecosystem can form around what's possible with real-time data processing and analytics. So that's another big area of focus for us, is continuing to move up the stack and make things easier for customers. And then I think the last piece, which I'll illustrate in a minute with our roadmap, is, okay, so we talked about Apex itself plus Malhar operators on top. And then we've begun to introduce things like a high-level API, as well as application template abstractions. All of that is really good foundational work that, again, reduces complexity, allows customers to focus on the 20% that's unique to them, so they don't have to reinvent the other 80% for every single pipeline that they create. But the final mile to us is beginning to solutionize or really deliver streaming analytics as an application. So what this really means is helping our business customers, that guy on the left when I talked about who do we serve, helping our business customers see the insight that is possible from streaming analytics. So what you'll see from us in the coming year is moving beyond just templates to more and more solutions and really ready-made applications for the customers who, where we can see that there's a same pattern, maybe it applies in different vertical industries, but we'll continue to look at how can we deliver the last mile, which is insight to the business on top of streaming analytics. I think quite often all of us who are engineers and technologists lose sight of the fact that that is really what the business is looking for, and it's hard for them to see the value unless we can deliver that last bit of insight. So the last thing I want to share is an eye chart, and I'm not going to try to walk you guys through this whole thing, but I'll use this to illustrate kind of where we're going with DataTorrent and Apache Apex over the next year or so. Now, this isn't the roadmap of Apache Apex itself, so this is just a little bit of our take on it. But what you'll see over the coming year from us is, as I mentioned, we've already launched our App Hub, which is a way to essentially deliver and share application templates for different processing pipelines. What you'll see from us in the coming year is more work in the area of application templates, so delivering ready-made templates and solutions so that we get closer to being able to solve a customer's problem. That reduces their time to value, but it also addresses the complexity problem. So you'll see us starting to focus not just on templates like ingestion and different pipelines, but starting to apply those to vertical industries, as well as giving customers more of a choice of deployment scenarios, like, for example, being able to deploy Apache Apex easily onto AWS or Azure or Google Cloud Platform. So we'll continue to essentially try to close the gap between a customer who has an idea and how long it takes them to actually get insight. And then within RTS itself, again, I talked about focusing on the right developer. So we have a lot more coming up in terms of making it easier for developers to do things like prototyping, making it easier to deliver directly in DataTorrent things like visualizations out of the data. That's, again, trying to serve that business user. And then you'll start to see us doing more and more with partners. That was that person on the right in the Who Do We Serve slide, where we'll start to have more and more ready-made integrations as well. And that's where we'll start to invest more in operators in the Malhar library, where as we see more use cases from customers, that will tell us where we need to go in terms of delivering new out-of-the-box operators and functionality. And then, of course, Apex Core, which is the foundation of everything here, we'll continue to invest to expand the Apex Core to capture more use cases. A lot of what Pritesh was going over when we look at the last year certainly has been focused on reducing time to value and total cost of ownership. But really, when we talk about the core of Apex and the Malhar operator library, it's about helping businesses capture their use cases and see what's really possible with streaming analytics. So you'll see more from us there in terms of expanding what's possible in the core to capture more use cases. So we're just about out of time, so I just kind of wanted to give some of the highlights. But again, the summary is, in the coming year, focusing on the right developer to help us drive adoption of Apache Apex, and focusing on moving up the stack, not leaving behind Apex, but moving up the stack so that we can more quickly show our customers, who ultimately are the business customers, what's possible with streaming analytics and real-time insight and action.